What's up, everybody? It's Hosey, and we're moseying to Old Town again, and we're doing the Whaley house ghost tour. Are you ready, Sayla? Yeah! We're gonna go get haunted by the ghosts in America's most haunted house here in San Diego. I'm excited.
Shortly after the marriage of a businessman named Thomas Whaley and his sweetheart Anna Delaunay in 1855, the couple moved into their new home, the Whaley house. By 1858, they produced 3 children and then later 3 more. However, some deaths in the house happened along the way, making it the most haunted house in America. To go on tour, it's $10 for kids and $14 for adults during the day. And if you want to be especially creeped out like we did, the 30-minute night tours are $18 flat rate for everyone. And I just wanted to give a content warning because a majority of this video is going to be the tour guide explaining the history of this house. And some of this history may not be suitable for younger viewers. But feel free to listen to this much like a podcast.
Here you can see Anna as great-grandmother, and this tiny little cute one up front is Marion. And one day Marion was playing in essentially like an empty lot, and she finds this little bottle that kind of rattles. So being a typical kid, she's curious, opens it up, and she finds this sticky, sweet, kind of honey-smelling substance. So she takes it out and she eats it. And it's not long before the family notices that something's not quite right with Marion. First it was vomiting, then fever, and then Marion was just gone. Turned out that she had ingested Kellogg's ant paste. It's a toxic pesticide that smells like honey to attract the ants, but it's laced with arsenic. And she was only 10 days away from her 3rd birthday when she passed away. So, while we're in this room, if you do feel a little tug on your clothing, like a kid is trying to get your attention, or sometimes it's a little tap against your arm or your hand, things like that, I always tell people not to worry. We're very, very fond of Marion here. If anything, I take it as a compliment when she makes herself known, because it just means she senses some comfort here. And this is usually the part where people start looking up at the stage, especially those curtains over there, wondering, is this the point where somebody's gonna jump out and scare everybody? Like that, for example. Sorry, that's my last scare I can welcome you to San Diego's very first theater. So the first commercial theater of San Diego was here in the house while family life was going on. Very popular group of traveling actors known as the Tanner Troupe, and they put on a variety show that was such a success. I know it's hard to picture, but on opening night they had 150 people crammed into this little room for the show.
Wow.
I know. They just moved into their dream home, and their child's death was the first thing they experienced here. Nowadays, when standing near the nursery that I mentioned, many say you can feel the residual pain, but we do get quite a few reports of the unmistakable sound of a baby's cry coming from this nursery at night. So Violet Whaley, Violet Eloise Whaley, was a very bright, very charismatic and funny young woman. She did have occasional bouts of melancholy, which of course we now call depression, but she was such a promising member of the family, and any man would have been more than lucky to marry Violet. And at age 19, she did marry the handsome George Bertolacci. Everyone assumed they were a perfect match for each other. So less than 2 months into their marriage, the day before Valentine's Day actually, George writes Violet a letter. And she can't wait to read this romantic note from her new husband. So she opens it up and it starts, "My Violet, when I married you, I meant to have been good." And he continues on to confess to so many lies. He tells her he has a daughter he's told nobody about. He had told her his whole family was dead, but they were very much alive and well. And he had lost all of his money to some other woman he'd been seeing in a different town just weeks before he married Violet. So she's heartbroken, but she continues to read, and he pleads with her in this letter. He writes, "For as bad as I am, I truly do love you. Give me just 2, 3, maybe 4 years to redeem myself." So Violet has kind of a choice to make. She could live with this man who told her nothing but lies, or she could go home and live in shame where the whole town knew the truth. And she did return home, where her parents essentially forced her to divorce him. But there were just too many whispers, too many disapproving looks around town. She would try to walk down the street here and people would point and laugh and gossip. And she just started to feel like she only had one choice left. So one summer day in 1885, Violet walked out to the family cistern with the intention to drown herself. But suddenly 2 hands plunged into the water behind her because her father Thomas had arrived just in time to save her life. And under the doctor's orders, she was then placed on careful watch, as they called it, in this master bedroom I mentioned. And according to the diaries, she would spend all of her days locked away in there, staring silently out of that bedroom window. On August 19th, 1885, at 6:30 in the morning, it was Violet's turn to write a letter. And she wrote, "All of the doctors cannot help me now. All is gone from me. I am cursed, and I am a curse." And Violet retrieved her father's revolver. She crept silently to the outhouse. She placed the barrel of the gun over her heart, and she pulled the trigger. And Thomas, he heard the crack of the gun. He burst through the doors, and he picked up his daughter. And Violet, she was still alive. But to hear the rest of this story, you'll have to follow me downstairs and into the parlor. And he laid her down on the settee next to this window here. But there was very little that he could do. The gunshot wound was fatal. So Thomas, he sat with his daughter for the last 10 or so minutes of her life. And apparently she didn't say a word or cry out in pain. She simply laid here and silently faded away. And Thomas and Anna had lost yet another child. And now you may think, with all the tragedy the Whaleys experienced, that would be more than enough to explain all the paranormal happenings in this house. However, before the Whaley house even stood here, this was actually the site of San Diego's execution grounds. In fact, the day that Mr. Whaley decided to buy this particular piece of land, he witnessed one of San Diego's most infamous executions. It was the hanging of Yankee Jim Robinson, the notorious bandit out here at the time. So on September 18th, 1852, a crowd was gathered right here where we're standing right now. A crowd including Mr. Whaley, and Yankee Jim, he was on the back of a wagon as they placed the noose around his neck. And according to Mr. Whaley, it's right here where he built this archway. He liked to tell people that was where the archway of the gallows actually stood and where Yankee Jim met his fate. Now, according to the legends, the rope was mismeasured, and due to Yankee Jim's particularly tall height, he was very, very tall, the rope was not the appropriate length, and so his feet kind of just barely grazed the ground, causing him to die not of a broken neck as in a typical hanging, but a slow and painful death due to strangulation in front of the crowd. Now, a lot of people say that Yankee Jim, he's kind of the prankster spirit around here. He can get into a little bit of trouble, and I think Thomas and Anna would probably agree with that assessment, because they actually used to write in their diaries about being tormented by the ghost of Yankee Jim. They would hear his boots thumping across the floorboards at night, keeping them up. But people do experience things right underneath this archway. It's typically anything from kind of a choking, sort of strangling sensation. But we have had guests leave with actual red rope marks around their neck. But Yankee Jim, he's only one of the many spirits that lingers here in these quarters. Probably the most present would have to be Anna Whaley, Thomas's wife. So while Thomas, he would come and go on business, Anna, she stayed here, and she was really the heart of the home. And while in life, she was definitely known to be a little bit of a party animal, especially while Thomas was away. Her presence now, it can be a bit too much for some to handle. So those of us who spend time here in the Whaley house will occasionally hear music coming from her favorite pump organ that she loved to entertain her guests with, and sometimes still does. But her most unmistakable characteristic is her musky lavender perfume. So if you do smell it, don't be alarmed. It's kind of just her way of letting people know when she's here and saying she would be delighted to make your acquaintance.
Wow. Did you smell that? I smelled that. Lavender. Was it lavender? Really good, actually. Yeah. I would do that. Interesting. It's still lingering in my nose.
So Thomas got himself a horse that was billed as the most trainable horse money could buy, which is probably a little bit of a false advertisement because the horse was actually known for getting loose and causing absolute chaos in the local markets down there. But for a runaway pony, he's been pretty good at sticking around these days. It's not uncommon to hear the telltale clip-clopping of a horse's hoofbeats over here on the property. But you might also feel a little brush against your leg out here, and if you do, don't worry. It's most likely Dolly, the family's pet terrier, a very common sighting out here. Or it could be the rarer sighting of my personal favorite out of all of the pets. His name was Chubby the Pug, and he likes to give a little ghostly puppy love from time to time. Thank you so much.
So have you had any experiences yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What have you
Pretty much
experienced?
all of us who work here.
Really?
Have experiences,
Really?
Yeah. So the first ghost I ever saw in my whole life was actually upstairs in the theater.
Okay.
I'm not especially sensitive to the paranormal. I'd never had any kind of experience before, but there was a day when it was really slow here, and it was the middle of the day, so you're not expecting anything.
Right.
Yeah, it was 1 or 2. And I had been up there for probably a good hour just reading because no one was coming in. And then eventually I look up from my book, and on the stage there's a woman there who was definitely not there before.
Oh.
And she just walks from the center of the stage into that curtain that's on the left side. It was the second curtain.
So towards the edge of the house, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and she just, it was like she was making her stage exit. She didn't acknowledge me, didn't look at me, didn't say anything.
Did you have full body chills?
I was just
I would have been
I think in shock. I just watched it happen, and weirdly I wasn't scared. It felt like it was supposed to be happening, is the only way I know how to put it. And the weird thing is her clothing was so clear and vivid to me. I don't know if maybe I just wasn't paying as much attention to her face, but I almost feel like it was kind of blurry or hard to focus on. But
Wow.
the dress I could probably draw a picture of. It was so clear.
Oh, wow.
And she just walked off stage, and that was it.
It was period timing too, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. One common thing up there that sometimes I warn people about, but sometimes not, is people, especially women, will feel a finger traced down their back, right down their spine.
Oh, wow.
That's Mr. Tanner. He was kind of known for being, yeah.
A little like that. Oh, wow. Wow, that's
Yeah,
so cool.
so that was my most vivid experience, but I mean, things happen pretty much every day here. Sometimes just little things. I'll hear footsteps, and I'll go to greet somebody upstairs because I hear footsteps and nobody's up
Hi,
there.
Yankee Jim, how are you?
So,
Wow.
freak you out, or are you like, nah, it's
honestly, I think knowing the history helps a lot because I know there isn't, an evil presence or anything. It's just
It's not the Sally house.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's, Yeah, it's a lot more tame.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, I don't find it too scary. So
It'd be kind of fun. It's like an unusual job. It's like, yeah. What do you get to do? Talk to ghosts all day.
to be honest, I was a lot more skeptical before I got this job. I was on the fence leaning towards not believing in them. So at my job interview, I was like, please don't ask me if I believe in ghosts. Please don't. And they didn't. They just asked if I was comfortable talking about them. But
They're like, she's gonna believe in a little bit.
Yeah, this place converts a lot of people.
Well, thank you so much, Kelsey. Have a good one. So, that was the tour of the Whaley house, America's most haunted house. So if you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Comment down below where should it mosey on over to next. If you want some more videos and just like this, feel free to subscribe. See you guys in the next one. But
We smelled the perfume. It was
Maybe.
only in one corner of the room.
yeah,
It was like we were over here.
and we didn't smell
went
over
to
there.
Exit, and it was.
It's
in,
like right
that
there,
one
and then it
corner
was gone.
by a chair.
What flavor was it?
It was
Lavender.
Okay.
Yeah.
It smelled really good.